Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. I'm out here at the Community Orchard, First Nations Garden, Community Gardens, and Edible Forest. And there's been a lot of changes today. Lucas, our new garden coordinator, rented a tractor from Total Rentals, and I believe they gave it to him for free, just to help out the community. And it's got this blade on the back that spins around, and it grinds down any high spots in the field. So you can see all the spots where the tile drainage went in are now all leveled, which is really good. So now we can proceed with planting the orchard, now that everything's done out here. With all the warm weather, the fruit trees have really come out into leaf and are looking really good. We've got flowers coming. We've got some pears forming on our pear tree here. If you look in right here, you can see a couple of pears just starting to get bigger. Everything in the orchard is looking fantastic as we get towards the end of a beautiful day. When you step back to the far corner of the field, you just realize how big this place is and how much potential it has for growing food. Tomorrow they'll be planting the shared garden on this side of the community gardens, and it should be a fun day of planting all kinds of vegetables, so I'll help out with that. I was walking back from the community gardens and I came across the nice Catalpa tree, and the leaves are just sort of coming in now, and you can see the branch structure and the leaves at the same time. Just a beautiful tree. You can see some of the old seed pods still hanging on the tree from last year. There's a look at the base of the tree. The bark on this tree is just fantastic. You can see the heart-shaped leaves just coming out, and it'll flower later on in the year. I think in July. I'm styling my bougainvillea, my small one, after this tree. The bougainvillea doesn't really have a tree-like form in nature, they're a vine. So I'm kind of copying the Catalpa tree because it has the same heart-shaped leaves, and my tree sort of has a branch structure similar to this one. So this is kind of my guide. There's no baseball this season. Everything's closed. The chestnut trees are in flower this time of year. Look beautiful. It was a beautiful evening, a nice walk to the community gardens. I had a fun day today. I met with the members of the Midlands Bonsai Society. They're in Birmingham, England, and we did it through Zoom. Birmingham, England, that sounds familiar. Birmingham, England is the home of the Brooks Saddle Company, and I now have two Brooks saddles. The one I showed on an earlier video, and I found a used one online, and I bought that one too. It was nice meeting Alex, who set up the Zoom meeting, and all the club members. They had really good questions, and I told them a little bit about life growing bonsai in Canada.
So what have you got in front of you there, Nigel?
The reason I have this tree in front of me is that it's in a 3D printed bonsai pot. It's painted to look like a Vietnamese style concrete planter, and it's on a stand that's also 3D printed.
To redirect the energy back down the branch, that weaker branch, because the tree might think, I don't need that branch at all.
I see.
So how do you direct energy to that inner weaker branch on a low branch without the tree thinking, I'll just forget the whole branch?
Right.
You understand?
Generally, the weaker lower branches, the reason they're weak is not necessarily the position on the tree, but the amount of light they're getting. So what you can do is I would work on thinning the branch above it or the branches above it to get more light to that lower branch. Thinning not only the branch structure, but maybe the needles too. Reducing the amount of needles above that lowest branch so it's getting as much light to it as possible.
I've got them rotating to the table, so I turn it to the sun.
That's what you want to do. I was going to say that you want that branch facing the sun as much as possible. And but I would try thinning out the branches above, because that will get light to that branch and then it'll gain vigor. I've got lots of bonsai work coming up tomorrow. I'm going to start by pruning the larch forest. You can see up top here, the new shoots are growing really long. And my goal is to balance the vigor on this tree, keeping the apex pruned nice and tight, and kind of letting the lower branches grow a little longer to kind of balance the vigor so eventually the tree just grows equally top to bottom. Also for tomorrow, I have a group of seedlings here that I got from Todd's Tropicals. He has a YouTube channel. Check it out, it's really good. And I've got a bullhorn acacia here, and you can see the bullhorns on it. And I've read that ants actually live inside the bullhorns, and they kind of protect the tree from insects. I've got a monkey ear tree, so it's grown really large. And there's a few more little seedlings down at the base here. And there's the seed pod of the monkey ear tree. It looks like a monkey's ear. There's a, I think that's a coralberry, maybe. There's a bougainvillea cutting. I've got my kapok trees here that I want to prune, and also some of them have a little bit of scale on them, so I'll be treating that. And then I've got my big fiddle leaf ficus here with the huge giant leaves. It needs repotting and root work to start the bonsai process. And I want to find a pot that's fairly large, because these leaves will blow in the wind and it'll try and tip the pot over. So I've got to find a pot that's, fairly large. I was thinking that black one behind here, but I think that's too big. So I'll have to find some pot that's maybe halfway between these two. So that'll be coming up tomorrow. Hi everyone, it's the next day. Let's get the larch forest on the bench and begin working on pruning back the new growth. I had a disaster this year with one of my larches. The forest is fine. It came out. This is what it should look like, all full of new growth and that. But my single larch over here, the last work I did to it was I pruned it back to the new buds, selecting my buds, and then we got that cold, and I don't know if it was that, but all the buds slowly went from green, the needles, to brown, and that usually indicates a root problem, that if your growth comes out in spring, it comes out green and then it withers away and dies, and that means that the roots aren't supplying nutrients or water or anything up to the upper part of the tree. So I'm suspecting something went wrong with the roots on this tree, and I'm trying to think back. I protected this in the coldest part of winter, just like the bigger larch forest over here. I haven't repotted this in 2 years, so it wasn't from repotting. I'm going to pull the tree out of the pot, and we'll have a look at the root system, and maybe it'll give us a clue to what has happened. But I don't like losing trees and not knowing why. And this just may be one of those trees that, I've lost it. You can see there's the last of the green needles up here. Yeah, I've lost the tree, and I really don't know why. I can't think of any reason. But I suspect it's some problem with the roots. I've got my larch on the bench, so let's have a look at it. There is a wire that runs underneath that was anchoring this one branch down, so I'll remove that. So that branch is loose now, it's stayed in position. And then I'll have to unwind this, and I think I'll need pliers for that. I see the casing of a crane fly. They lay their eggs in here, and then the larvae, I think they eat roots and then they hatch. I've seen this on my trees before, and it's usually not a problem, but maybe it was with this tree, I don't know. So let's get the tree out of the pot and have a look at the root system now. There it is. Smells okay. I can see there's no new root growth. There's no white tips on any of the roots, which indicates the roots are dead. It doesn't smell bad or anything, but definitely no new root growth, so it's not root bound. I've been very careful with the watering of it, so I don't know. Something killed this tree and I just don't know what it is. It's too bad. I was really looking forward to developing this tree into the future, but I had, most of the major problems sorted out on it, and it was, looking good and ready to grow. There's still a bit of green on it. Well, I'll keep watering it. There's a bit of green there. I'll keep watering it, but it's not looking good. All right, on to pruning the big larch forest now. I've got the larch forest on the bench now. This one's looking good and healthy. It does worry me, when one dies, and I had a larch 2 years ago. It was just a little seedling, and it came out in spring, and everything was looking good, and then it slowly started going, less than green, and then it started turning a bit yellowish and then brownish, and that one died too, and it was just a little seedling that someone collected and gave to me, and I never figured out why that one died either. It could be like some fungal disease in the roots, or I don't know. It's so this larch forest looks really healthy. It's possible maybe it was just too cold in winter for the larch. I don't know. Maybe I left it out in the winter weather too long before I brought it into the basement. Maybe I brought it into the basement too early and it was too warm for the winter. I don't know. I'll read up on larches, see if I can discover any possibilities. But for now, it's a mystery. The new growth on the larch forest is coming really well. You can see up top here, the shoots are just really long. They're really extending well. So I want to keep those apexes thin. I don't want them to get big and bulbous, so I'm going to prune back those long shoots now and just kind of balance the vigor of the tree. There's a lot of shoots at the bottom down here that haven't really extended a whole lot. They're kind of the perfect size, but then there is some that have extended quite a bit. So I'm just going to work on those shoots that have extended a lot, and the ones that are kind of just growing nicely, I'll leave those alone. I'll start up in the apex of the trees, pruning all these new shoots back, leaving just a little bit of the new growth. The apex on this tree isn't quite as vigorous as some of these. You can see these ones are really long. So you just look at each tree, and the ones that have big long shoots coming out, you prune those back. And if the shoots are just, moderate, you can leave them alone. You can pinch these with your fingers if you want, or you can prune them with scissors. On the apex of this tree, the new shoots aren't going vertical, but they're more of a horizontal shoot. But they still need to be reduced back, and that'll keep the apex of your trees thin, so they won't thicken up and look bulbous at the top. So any long shoots can get pruned back, I've got the tree on the turntable, which really helps when you're pruning. You can rotate it around. There's some shoots out front here that need shortening also. I think that's got most of these shoots pruned back now, all the long ones. Here's a look at the forest now. I've got most of those major vigorous shoots pruned back, but I still think it needs a little work up top in some of these apex areas. You can see the shoots, they're numerous and they're quite vigorous, even though they haven't extended like some of those other ones. So they're kind of maybe the second zone of vigor, or you know, the second most vigorous growth. So I think just that kind of growth should be pruned up in the apex of the trees. And again, to avoid that thickening up in the apex. So I'll do that. You can see some of them, the growth is so small I probably couldn't pinch out the shoots, but you know, definitely up here I've got enough room. But definitely up here I've got enough room to do that. So I'll do that next. So this I definitely couldn't scissor prune because it's just not long enough to get in there with your scissors. Too many needles tightly packed together. So I'll just grab the shoot at the base and pinch out the top of it. Always leaving some needles of new growth. But this just should stop the top from being so vigorous. It'll allow the lower portions of the tree to catch up. So that's got that apex in check now. I'll check all the other trees, make sure their apexes are in check, pinching out any sort of medium strength shoots. The larch forest is back in check, and I think I'll have to do this process again in probably a week or two. You can see some of these lower branches, the shoots are getting quite strong on them. So it's just a process, this pinching, that I'll have to do throughout the growing season, just to keep the balance of vigor in check, keeping those apexes nice and tight, and you know, just trying to equalize the growth on the trees throughout the whole summer. The moss bushes are doing quite well underneath the trees here. They could use a bit of pruning, so I'll do that next. Okay, pruning the moss bushes. So my objective this year was to get them more conical, to look like, you know, coniferous bushes or evergreen bushes, rather than the rounded look I had before. So there's some nice green moss to prune back to here. This view might remind you of my picture for the channel, that my little thumbnail or whatever you call it is kind of this view. So that's got the kind of the profile of this one pruned back. I could go a little more here. Should be using my curved scissors, I guess. I'm out front now, so I'll try and get this little bush pruned to a conical shape. So cute. And this bush is kind of joined with the one behind, so we gotta do some separating here. It's not easy getting in here pruning these bushes. Yeah, that's got a bit of separation there. Just need to prune the front of this bush. Edward Scissorhands doing his thing here. I've got some in here that are just kind of a big blob, and I've got to get some separation in there, make them look more like bushes. My little kind of gorge here is filling up with moss. I've got to keep it pruned back. Keep some separation here. The larch forest is all pruned up and tidied up. Let's go in and have a look. I'll give the larch forest a nice cool drink of water and then put it back on the bench. So here I go. It's important to get all the way around the forest, watering every part of it equally. You don't want any dry spots. Every tree in the forest needs its water. And with 7 trees, the soil can dry out quite quickly on a hot day. And they need this cool water to cool them, so it's important to keep the watering up, especially on these hot days. And that should do it. I got some seeds sent to me in the mail by Fabian. He's from Albuquerque, New Mexico in the United States, so thanks Fabian. We'll be planting these today. And there's 2 packages of seeds. We've got sugar pine from the Lake Tahoe region and jack pine seeds also from Lake Tahoe. And they're falling out. So thanks Fabian, we'll get these planted today and hopefully they'll grow. I've got a seed tray all ready for planting the seeds. I think I'll put the jack pines in the front row here and the sugar pines towards the back. All right, here we go. So I plant them, they come out of the cones, the pine cones with a wing on them, and I plant them with the seed down and the wing sticking up. And that's how they would land in the ground in nature. So you want them fairly deep in the soil, but not too deep. If you plant them too high, sometimes when the root starts coming out, it lifts the seed up out of the soil instead of the root going into the soil. So you don't want them planted too shallow, but you don't want them too deep that they won't ever see the light of day. I'll put about 4 per section here. Fabian sent me lots of seeds, so that's good. All the jack pines are planted now, so now it's time to plant the sugar pines. I think that's a good planting height with the wing of the seed just kind of sticking up a bit out of the soil. So there's 4 planted in there. I sure hope these grow because I like watching, seeds turn into trees. I'll mark the side with the sugar pines with a white pebble representing sugar, and the jack pines will get a kind of a brown colored stone. That way I'll remember which is which. All right, I'll have to give them a water and then stand back and watch them grow. So I planted all the seeds, which is probably way too many. Some of them I probably have 8 seeds per section, but we'll see. Maybe maybe they won't all germinate, so it's better to be safe than sorry. Here's where I place the seed tray. It gets pretty well full sun for most of the afternoon. I've still got a lot of seedlings to plant and clean up and prune, but that'll have to come up in part 2 of this series. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for watching today in the Bonsai Zone.